welcome to the Retro Odyssey podcast. My name is Steven, and I'm here with my co-host Matt. How's it going?
Hi, how's it going?
It's been okay. We've been sick here for the past week or so. If my voice sounds weird, that's why.
No, you sound perfectly normal.
Getting to be into the holidays, which brings with it various things like overtime. Some of the companies that buy things from the company I work for don't close down for the holidays. So because we end up having to work overtime to make up for it.
Oh, right.
So that's not ideal, but at least it's more money.
Definitely getting busy at my work in supermarket. It's getting a bit manic. Luckily, The Christmas songs haven't started yet.
Well, I imagine Wednesday was probably hell. Actually, never mind. You don't have that problem. Because the day before Thanksgiving here is just insane at grocery stores.
We do have Black Friday deals on, but it's not. It's nothing like that.
You don't have a big food-based holiday.
No.
This week.
I saw a meme a while back. If England gave everyone a day off in remembrance of the time that we fucked another nation over, we'd never go to work.
Exactly. Things are just messy over here, but what else is new? So I can tell you up front, I have not played a whole lot this month, aside from playing the games we're going to talk about. It's mostly been Final Fantasy 14 for me.
Yeah. So you're deep into Stormblood now.
I'm in the third patch for Stormblood. I've gotten that far. We'll probably get into Shadowbringers by the end of the week.
The patch content generally around 2 to 3 hours worth of content in each patch. A lot of the time in the patches, it does kind of like turn into a visual novel, essentially.
Yeah.
But the writing's good enough that it's not really an issue.
I've usually enjoyed the patch content. The one exception was just how long it was for Realm Reborn.
Yeah, that was just stupidly long.
But Heavensward's patch content was good, and Stormblood's has been good so far. But yeah, I'm just slowly working my way through.
Around like the last two patches, that's where they start building up Shadowbringers as well. But I would have been playing a lot more Final Fantasy 14, but apparently I can go fuck myself. Because Endwalker was meant to come out, the latest expansion, in November, and it got put back 2 weeks to December the 3rd. Which is annoying. I understand why it happened. They needed a little bit of extra time for extra polish, and the extra time that they took would have eaten into some of these server stability checks that they need to do. So in order to release like a stable expansion and like a stable experience on launch, they decided to put it back 2 weeks.
Yeah. Because go figure, Square Enix is better at this than Blizzard.
Yes. Yeah, a hell of a lot better. And they actually put out consistent content as well. Like World of Warcraft just went for like a year with nothing, which is insane. I would have been playing that. I've still been playing Final Fantasy 14, but I should have been on the moon by now, but I'm not.
Right.
I have been playing Rise of the Tomb Raider, though. That's the second game in the Tomb Raider reboot trilogy. We played the first one for an episode back in March for the remake episode.
It was very good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Went in 100%ed it, and I finally had time with Endwalker being put back to play Rise of the Tomb Raider, which is the second one. And again, I had a really good time with it. I intended to do 100% on this as well, but a couple of the challenges were kind of like really frustrating me. So I just thought, you know what, I've finished the game. I had fun with it. Let's just leave it there. It's a really good game, really solid. It is essentially Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, story wise, but it does a lot of interesting things with it.
Oh, I mean, and there's only so many of the big great treasures to find. Like, Uncharted did El Dorado, and I think they did another one. A lot of these stories can be similar, but still have some things that make them interesting.
Yeah, I mean, in this one, it was set in Siberia, so you have kind of like a lot of snowy landscapes. In contrast to the first game, which was more kind of like mountainous and wooded areas and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But really, really enjoyed it and really recommend it. And I'm looking forward to at some point next year getting around to Shadow of the Tomb Raider. But yeah, so I finished that, and I've once again gotten like quite heavily into Oblivion. Which every few years I get heavily into Oblivion. Maybe I'll finish it this time. But basically, a friend came over. We ended up watching a load of Oblivion meme videos on YouTube, and that just inspired me to boot it up again. And I'm now the furthest into the main quest that I've ever been. I finally found a Daedric artifact I was willing to give to Martin. Um, but like true to form, I got distracted again, and now I'm going through Shivering Isles content.
As you do.
Yeah, I want to finish it this time. I mean, it is in a week's time. It's going to be going onto the back burner because Endwalker's coming out. But
Right.
I am hopefully going to finish it this time at some point. But it probably won't be until the new year.
Yeah. At some point, I'll get back to it. It's, not a priority because I've got so many projects right now. I did start playing Fire Emblem Awakening. I managed to get a hold of all the 3DS Fire Emblems, so I started working on those to, see if I could finish those. Because Fire Emblem is just a series that I love. Like, I always enjoy playing it, and I always bounce off and end up not finishing.
I've never actually played a Fire Emblem game.
So I really enjoy it because I enjoy tactics games, and it's XCOM with swords and magic. So I really enjoy that. But for whatever reason, every time I start a Fire Emblem game, I end up bouncing off.
Well, I know that if you can get to the end of Four Houses, the final boss music is excellent. Like, is one of the best tracks that I've like ever heard in a video game.
I think I have listened to that.
It's called God Shattering Star, and it's just superb. Go to YouTube, type in God Shattering Star, and prepare to be blown away for like 8 minutes.
Nice. But yeah, I mean that's about it. I mean, even like, I'm still technically playing Metroid Dread, but I think I've booted it up like twice in the past 3 weeks.
How have you been getting on with it? I've been enjoying it.
Oh yeah, it's still great. It's still probably one of the best Metroid games I've ever played. It's just one of those, started focusing on Final Fantasy, so other stuff takes a back seat.
Yeah.
I think we do have a couple of news topics to talk about. Not too much this month.
There's not much in the way of releases, but in terms of news, first one I've got, Nintendo released these little Game and Watch anniversary editions. Basically, it looks exactly like what one of the old Nintendo handheld Game and Watches,
Hmm.
and they have a bunch of games on. They have a Legend of Zelda one. They've got a Super Mario one. I believe they've got a Donkey Kong one as well. And these devices basically just have a bunch of games from each of those series that you can like play on a little handheld, and they look really nice, really nicely presented. If I was more into handhelds, then I'd definitely pick one of these up.
In terms of like, a collector item, yeah, this is great. Like, I'm probably not gonna pick these up just because like I'd rather just play the games on something more comfortable
Yeah.
because I mean these are basically just Game Boy Micros with the Game & Watch slapped on them. Because the Game Boy Micro was basically the same size as the Game & Watch. It's a cool thing to have. Definitely not the recommended way to play these games.
The only real complaint that I saw from people is with the Legend of Zelda one, which has got Zelda 1, 2, and Link's Awakening on it. It is actually the original Game Boy version of Link's Awakening and not the Game Boy Color version.
Well, that's kind of dumb.
I mean, it does have dungeons in the game kind of like that do tie into the whole color thing. So it is an odd choice to put the original Game Boy game on there rather than the Game Boy Color. But that was pretty much the only complaint that I saw about these new things.
Yeah, I hadn't even heard that. It's, like I knew about them, I just wasn't looking at them super closely. But I mean, it's like I said, it's a cool thing to have if that's your thing.
Yeah, it's not for me personally.
Yeah.
Another thing that's not for me is the Grand Theft Auto trilogy, which came out, the definitive trilogy. Which, if you remember from last episode, I was actually really excited about this. I thought, yeah, finally get them on PS4 because I've got the PS2 games and I've got Vice City on PS3 through the PlayStation Store, but remasters of all three of those games, really looking forward to it, and it turns out they are bollocks. I'm sure you've probably seen like footage online. They look really, really weird. It's kind of like an AI has upscaled all these textures, and the environments don't look that bad, but the character models look terrible.
From what I was hearing, that's exactly what happened. Is they just used an AI to upscale everything. And the funniest part of it for me is the signs in the game where the textures were a little bit blurry. So whatever they used just basically had to guess at what the sign said, and it ruined some of the jokes.
Yeah, one of the ones in San Andreas was a hot dog restaurant, which the tagline in the original game says "the taste of a real man's meat," and the AI or whatever it is has changed that to "the taste of a real man's heat," which just ruins the joke.
I mean, and unless you really want to stretch the hot in hot dog, but I think the other one I saw was there was guitar wank booths became guitar hank booths.
Yeah, and they managed to leave out one of the L's of available.
Yeah,
In,
Aviable.
in that particular one, yeah. Oh, it's an absolute mess, and the bugs that they've introduced are just insane. The performance is not good. The rain, you can't see anything in the game when it rains. Basically, it just completely obscures your vision. It is just terrible all around. And from a company that has released the most successful media product of all time, to put this amount of effort in is just inexcusable.
Well, I mean that's the whole thing, isn't it? They have the most successful media item of all time to worry about. For me, the low effort of the port it's bad. It's definitely bad because you're going to call this the definitive edition and then put no effort in. But the thing that really tips it for me was removing the original versions from digital storefronts.
Yeah, you apparently cannot get. I don't know if they've backtracked this since, but they took off the digital versions that you used to be able to get on PlayStation 3.
Yeah, which yeah, that's a common thing. Square did the same thing with Final Fantasy before the Pixel remasters. The difference is the Pixel remasters were actually worth getting.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many different versions of those Final Fantasy games that it's not that hard to find a digital copy. Like, with the Grand Theft Auto games, like there was only one release of each one, and the digital version that was up on storefronts was the only version.
Yeah. It would have been better received if they hadn't bothered with a remaster of them and
Mm-hmm.
just put straight ports on.
Yeah. Or even better, just remake one of them. Because like I've seen people say they would have taken a remake of one of them rather than a subpar version of all three.
Yeah.
And if they were smart, they would have done a remake of GTA 3, brought it up to, whatever modern GTA standards are, and then in a couple of years bring out Vice City, and then in a couple of years bring out San Andreas. Like they could have stretched this out and made so much more money out of it.
I mean, I think if they were going to do that, they probably would have started with San Andreas because it's the most popular one. But yeah, like taking the time to do each one individually would have been a much better idea.
And would have made them more money. It would have taken longer, but it would have made them more money. I know, it's just I don't have the nostalgia for Rockstar games that a lot of people do because I've, to my knowledge, never played one. Like I've never played Grand Theft Auto, never played Red Dead. So like I don't have that nostalgia for them to be like, "Oh, well, I got so many good memories of Rockstar games." I don't have that at all. Like Grand Theft Auto doesn't appeal to me.
So yeah, so avoid Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition. Just
Yeah.
for the price of it, because god damn it's fucking expensive as well. It's like 50, 60 quid for
Yeah.
like the three games. For that price, you can find a used PS2 and all three original games for less than what you would pay for these.
And it'll look better.
It will.
Yeah, so well, once again, big publisher decides to be lazy and it backfires. Go figure.
While on the topic of big publishers as well, Bethesda have released a new game.
Is it Skyrim?
It is Skyrim. It is Skyrim, 10th anniversary edition of Skyrim. I don't know what's different about it. I can tell you one thing that's different about it, actually, because a friend of mine had Skyrim, the remastered edition on PS4, and he got a free upgrade to the anniversary edition when that came out. It like patched it to that edition, and it corrupted his save. So he has lost all of his progress on that. Which
God, it's like Smash Brothers with the replays, but like way worse.
so yeah, it will fuck up your saves
Oh
probably.
God. So from what I've heard, the big thing with this one is it's basically the special edition with Creator Club content built in. Which if you're not there for mods, then there's no reason to get it. If that's the case. Plus, like, I'm sure whatever Bethesda has curated is not going to be as entertaining as what you could just pick up for free. Look, I've never played Skyrim, so I can't tell you, what's good and what's not. But if you haven't played Skyrim, just pick up one of the other 6 versions because they'll be cheaper than this one.
If you're going to be playing the game for the first time, play it vanilla. Grab like the remastered version and just play through it like that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say either grab the Legendary Edition or the Special Edition, just because that way you're getting all, well, I'm pretty sure those both come with all the DLC content, or at least all the expansion content.
Yeah, and there's quite a lot of expansion content. I mean, there is a lot of content in Skyrim.
Mm.
A hell of a lot. More than there is in Oblivion.
It's super popular for a reason. I don't know what
Yeah.
that reason is, but
As I've said before, it is a decent game. I just prefer Oblivion. But Todd Howard keeps wanting to shove Skyrim down my throat.
I mean, it just works, right?
Well, except
But
when it doesn't. Except when it corrupts your save.
yes. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl came out.
So it did.
I haven't picked it up, so I can't tell you anything about it. I know Adam's been playing it. From what I understand, it's basically exactly Diamond and Pearl without any of the improvements that came from Platinum. So that's kind of a bummer, but it looks nice.
Not as nice as it could look. Because once again, this is another one of the Nintendo games which is leaked early by pirates, and they have it actually running better on emulators than it does on the actual hardware.
It cracks me up. And they also discovered that the cartridges literally have both games on there, and there's just one line of code that flips the version, which that's just amusing to me. The original Diamond and Pearl, there was a cartridge that had both on them, but they just did that for the whole thing on this one, which is just kind of funny to me. But yeah, I can't really speak to how they play or anything because I haven't picked them up. I've been busy with other stuff. It's Diamond and Pearl. We knew it was coming. We knew what it looked like.
It's not something I'm fussed about personally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna get it eventually, but it's not a priority for me. If I'm gonna play Pokemon, I'm gonna go back and finish Sword and Shield.
Another one quickly that did come out during this past month. The Final Fantasy V Pixel Remaster came out.
Oh yeah, that just came out.
I've not installed it and played it yet. I did pre-order it, and I have it on Steam, but I've not actually installed or checked it out yet.
Yeah, 5 is one of the very few Final Fantasy games that I have actually never played in any capacity.
All right.
Because even 4, I've not played a lot of 4. I've started it once or twice on the Game Boy version, but well, okay, so I rented the Game Boy version, which tells you how long ago it was. But 5 I've not touched at all. The only copy I actually own is the PS1 copy. That's another one. Eventually I'll pick it up. It's not going anywhere.
They've been drip feeding these out, and I assume that 6 will probably come in December or January.
Yeah. And honestly, that's probably when I'll just pick up the whole bundle. I'm sure I've talked about Final Fantasy VI at some point on this podcast. Final Fantasy VI is kind of the one I've got the most investment in.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting around to it one day.
Well, I'm gonna make you play it for the podcast at some point.
Well, I won't complain about that.
No, but everyone else will. I don't think we have anything else to touch on, so we can take a quick break and get into our games for the topic this month.
Okay.
Brutal Combo!
All right, so our first game this month is the arcade and Super Nintendo fighting game Killer Instinct. This was developed by Rare. It was actually another really impressive showing from Rare on the Super Nintendo, because just like with Donkey Kong Country, they had the actually good-looking 3D graphics for the time. Obviously, I have a little bit of experience with this from back in the day. I think my dad had a copy, but I mean, this is also back when it was, button mash, button mash. I didn't know how to quote unquote properly play fighting games.
Oh, I still don't. I still button mash. This game actually exists almost because of Donkey Kong Country. Because when Rare were developing Donkey Kong Country, they needed like quite a lot of expensive equipment to make Donkey Kong Country because it was quite a graphically beautiful game. I mean, it still looks great today, honestly. Donkey Kong Country, and the equipment that they needed was so expensive. The guys at Nintendo Japan didn't want to pay for their equipment, basically, just to make this one game. So what they actually did is said, okay, we'll sign you on for 3 games. Instead, we'll get you this equipment, but you're going to do 3 games for us. And Killer Instinct ended up being the second game that they did for them. So it probably wouldn't have existed if Donkey Kong Country wasn't so expensive to make.
I mean, you know what? It was money well spent.
Yeah, I mean, it originally kind of like started out as more generic kind of fighting game, but the guy that they brought on for like the project lead, he'd had this desire for ages to kind of like make a combo style video game, like a combo style fighting game, and he was like brought on for this, and that's basically what he turned it into. I mean, the original title was going to be Brute Force. Eventually, obviously, turned into Killer Instinct, which none of the developers actually thought that they would be able to use the name Killer Instinct. They thought Nintendo would just say no. But surprisingly, they apparently didn't bat an eyelid and just let them put it out as Killer Instinct.
I'm honestly surprised. Number one, I'm surprised they let them do it in the first place. I'm surprised they then let them release it in America like that and didn't change it. But, you know, we're not allowed to see the word bar in a Final Fantasy game. But yeah, I mean, that combo system is really the beginning and end of the story for Killer Instinct. Like that combo system went on to basically be the basis of modern fighting game combo systems.
Yeah, I mean, previous games had kind of like simple combo system. You could follow up a attack with another attack and stuff like that. But this is the first game that really focused in on it and kind of like made that the selling point, made that the fighting style. And they balanced it by having these things called combo breakers as well, which the other character could pull off if their timing was really good. Because basically, if you go back to like Street Fighter 2, if someone's got you pinned in a corner and they're just comboing you with like whatever special moves they've got, you can't do a thing. You are animation locked. The interesting thing is with Killer Instinct, you're not animation locked. You still actually have control of your character, and if your timing is right, you can pull off these combo breakers, which will, as the name suggests, break the combo of the other player and open them up to an attack. So it's not just kind of like one-sided. If someone is pulling off this really kind of like brutal combo, you do actually have something that you can do about it.
Yeah.
That kind of like brought in a bit more balance to it. Honestly, the combo system itself, it is a lot of fun. I played this a hell of a lot on Super Nintendo. Like over at a friend's house, I would always play Full Goal. Full Goal was my favorite character. And I believe he would switch between Spinal and Saberwolf because he likes more like monstrous characters and stuff like that. And just being able to pull off fairly easily these really impressive looking combos and having the audio kind of like dial into that as well. I mean, if you didn't have such a satisfying hit sound for each hit of this combo, it wouldn't have worked. Without the sound, it is nowhere near as fun to actually pull off these combos. But everything kind of like meshes together to just create this really, really fun and crunchy kind of like fighting style.
And it's also a blast to hear the announcer and it's like, you know, master combo. So that added another element to it.
The combo breaker as well is just combo breaker.
Yeah.
I love that so much. There's a funny story around the announcer thing with the arcade game. Now, arcade games generally, when they're getting set up, the arcade owner will kind of like play a few minutes of the game and they'll set like the volume and stuff like that, just so everything's kind of like on a level. Now, the announcement for the combo, the 5-hit combo, 4-hit combo, I think like master combo or something like that, they are just at normal volume. The higher the combo count goes, the louder the announcer is. So basically, you're playing the game for 5 minutes if you just kind of like got the game in as an arcade owner. You've set your volume to whatever level that first combo thing kind of like gives you. But once people start finding out how to pull off these massive combos, all of a sudden the game is drowning out all the other games in the arcade. So when the announcer shouts ultra combo, it is just the loudest thing you can hear in the arcade. And they did that deliberately. It's a sneaky way of doing it, but it drew people in. You know, it made people pay attention to it. And I just thought that was kind of like a funny, sneaky kind of like thing that they did to try and get more attention onto the arcade.
I mean, it works.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, the game was good to begin with. I'm trying to remember. I know there was supposed to be a Killer Instinct game on the N64.
There is. Killer Instinct 2 was an arcade game, but Killer Instinct 2 was later ported to the N64 as Killer Instinct Gold.
Right.
The arcade version of Killer Instinct 2 didn't get a home release. Well, I mean, until it was rebranded as Killer Instinct Gold.
Right. Okay. The other really interesting thing, I guess, especially for us as Xbox owners, is when Killer Instinct was remade for I believe it was for the launch of the Xbox One.
Yeah, it was a launch title.
And I have that because I think it was put out for free at some point. But that version is actually, still pretty good. Obviously, it's got a lot more, modern game polish on it. I want to say there's 1 or 2 versions of Killer Instinct on Rare Replay.
It has Killer Instinct and Killer Instinct Gold.
Right.
I do believe. So, like, if you have an Xbox, you have like the access to the entire series.
Yeah, you have access to every Killer Instinct that's ever been released for consoles.
Because that 2013 one was put out as kind of like a free-to-play game. Basically, you have Jago as the one character you can play in the free version, and then you buy other fighters if you want to play as them.
Right.
It's a bit of a bad deal if you're the kind of person that plays like a hell of a lot of characters in fighting games. But if you have 1 or 2 mains that you kind of like flip between, then you can quite cheaply just pick up the fighters that you want and, play with them. Like I personally haven't downloaded the 2013 one, but if I did, I would probably just download that, buy Fulgore, and I just play with him.
Yeah.
But it was Double Helix that made it, which quite a few companies they had quite a few companies kind of like pitched to them when they were looking to make this, and Double Helix are the ones that they actually chose, which was it's a bit of a weird company to do it because most of their games are not very good. They put out Silent Hill Homecoming, which isn't great, honestly. G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra, Front Mission Evolved, Green Lantern, Rise of the Manhunters.
Oh, geez.
But what kind of like set them apart is the fact that as part of their pitch to Microsoft, they had actually made a prototype version of like what they wanted to do, and they had like these Killer Instinct style combos in this prototype, and it really kind of like showed off that they knew how to make a Killer Instinct game, and that is the reason that they chose them to make it. So the intention was to kind of like do all these different seasons, and you would have different characters like added at different times, or you can buy bundles, or you can just buy them all single and stuff like that.
Right.
But Double Helix were actually bought out by Amazon. So after like season 1, they basically had to abandon it. They were really, really kind of like enjoying making the game, and a lot of them were like really bummed out by it. But Microsoft ended up going to Iron Galaxy, which is one of the other companies that had pitched for the remake in the first place, and got them on board to do seasons 2 and 3. And they kind of like had a crossover period of about a month where Double Helix were showing the Iron Galaxy guys like how to use their software and kind of like how to optimize the engine and stuff like that. So it ended up continuing like for 3 seasons. But yeah, so Jeff Bezos almost killed Killer Instinct.
Interesting. See, I didn't know about them being bought by Amazon, so I just knew that the game had stopped at a certain point, and that there was more planned, but it didn't end up getting done.
They did like 3 full seasons, but after that they kind of like stopped with the free to play model, and they released kind of like proper retail versions of it with like all the content in and stuff like that. I mean, it is. I believe you can still download like free to play version, but most people, if they're picking this game up now, you're better off just getting a retail version, which has like everything in it. I literally watched a documentary about the 2013 Killer Instinct a couple of days ago. It's really, really fascinating documentary.
Like, it was really interesting at the time, just seeing this franchise get brought back, as a Xbox exclusive, which everyone makes fun of now. But as someone who had played the original, that was like, oh, that's kind of a cool thing that they're doing. And then of course, it takes so long to get one that you end up not playing the game for a while. But no, it's definitely an interesting story.
Another interesting thing as well that Mick Gordon did the music season 1.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Because like the music in the original was great. It's got a brilliant soundtrack. But what Mick Gordon did, basically kind of similar to what he did for Doom, where the music is kind of like adaptive and it reacts to what's going on. So like the further you are into a fight in Killer Instinct, the music will ramp up. And if you pull off like an ultra combo, the beats of the music will line up to the hits that you're performing, and it will kind of like you kind of have to see it to understand, but it ties the music ties in with your combo, and it just makes it feel really epic.
Yeah, like I've definitely seen that before. So yeah, the music was definitely a high point for it. I enjoyed a lot of the character designs. I think I also played a lot of Fulgore, just because I'm usually a big fan of glowy bits.
What kind of like draws me to Fulgore is the fact that Wolverine is my favorite Marvel character, and he's probably the closest you've got to Wolverine because he has kind of like metal claw hands.
Right.
Very, very varied character selection. Like more so than most of the games. It's kind of like they just pulled everything from everywhere.
Yeah.
There's a skeleton. There's a dinosaur. Fulgore's a robot. There are ice and fire elementals. It's a really odd mix. There's a boxer.
Yeah.
They all play really well. though. The characters, like going back to the original, it is so much fun. Like in 2-player, definitely. Just pulling off these combos because they're not that difficult to pull off. Like even if you are button mashing like I often do, you're still gonna get like fairly decent combos. You might not be able to pull off like an ultra combo just button mashing, but you can still pull off something, and you can still feel like really cool doing it.
Yeah, like it feels really good to play, and like you said, that really goes for just about all of the characters. I mean, I think they all felt pretty good. There might have been one or two that felt a little weird just because of like the dinosaur might have felt a little weird, but overall it's a fighting game that feels good to play, which is kind of one of the most important things. I never played the arcade game, but I'm assuming the arcade game was just as good, if not better.
Yeah, I've not played the arcade version, but I've seen footage of it, and it looks fantastic.
Mm.
With Rare being the company they are, the SNES version looks fantastic as well.
Oh yeah, because outside of Square Enix, Rare was probably one of the developers that got the most out of the SNES. Actually, it wasn't Square Enix; it was SquareSoft back then. But still, it's a good game, and you should check it out. If you've got an Xbox, you can play any version of Killer Instinct. Rare Replay has the older versions. As far as I remember, they play fine on the Xbox.
Oh yeah, I mean I played them like a couple months ago on Rare Replay, and yeah, they run well.
Yeah, it's been a bit since I played them on Rare Replay, but yeah, definitely if you haven't played Killer Instinct, definitely check them out. So we'll take a short break and come back with our second game.
Ultra Combo!
So our second game this month is Soul Calibur 2, the third game in the Soul series. Although, nobody gives this one grief like they do Kingdom Hearts. But anyway, was released in arcades, PS2, GameCube, and the original Xbox. Probably the most notable thing about the console versions was they had a different guest character on each console. The later games in the series have been known for their guest characters, but it was always, well, in 4 they had exclusive characters, but then you could just buy them later. But after that, they were the same for all the consoles. But the Xbox version had Spawn. The PS2 version had Heihachi from Tekken, and the GameCube version had Link, which I think the GameCube version is the one most people I've talked to had.
Yeah, it's the one I've got.
At one point, I had all 3. I think I'm down to just GameCube now. Soul Calibur 2 has always been interesting for me because I actually played it more in the arcade than on consoles. When I lived back in New Orleans and I was in a lot of bowling leagues, there was a Soul Calibur 2 machine at the bowling alley that we usually were at. And I mean, just about once or twice a week, my dad and I would go over and play a few rounds of Soul Calibur, specifically because they had a mode on there called Conquest Mode, where you would choose your character and then choose one of 4 factions, and you would have computer battles that kind of represented other players and the characters they had picked, and you would basically gain or lose territory on this map depending on how well you fought. And you could, go up in ranks, and you would be, matched up with people that were closer to your rank. It was this whole really intricate, really fun mode that was only in the arcade version. There's, nothing really like it in the console version.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't remember seeing it in the GameCube version.
The only mode in the console version that has a map is the I think, is it called adventure mode in this one?
Yeah, it's the one. It's the one with all the story content.
Yeah, so conquest mode is what we played the most, and it was a pretty obvious, way to keep people coming back and, putting quarters in the machine, but it worked because it was fun. The fights on that would be more challenging and more fun than just the standard arcade mode, because once you've played this game enough, you get to the point where the arcade mode isn't challenging anymore. But the conquest mode, they would actually be tougher fights. It, like, if you went up against the number one person on a different faction, that would be a tougher fight than just a regular computer. I don't know how they did that system, but it worked really well. So that's the arcade version. The console version just has a ridiculous amount of content. Like, I can't think of many other fighting games at the time that had this much content.
I was looking up some long play videos on YouTube because I couldn't get particularly far because I was absolutely shit at this game. But the long play videos are kind of like 10 plus hours for a fighting game. The long play for Killer Instinct is 20 minutes. And this is over 10 hours.
You say 10 hours, I believe it. There's so much in here. There's the regular arcade mode, which is just what would be, it's what it says in the box. It's what you would go through when you played in the arcade. Certain fights in a mostly random order. I think the last couple were always the same, with like tiny bits of story for each character. And then there's the story mode, which is where the meat of it is. And I really liked this mode because you would go through and you could actually upgrade your weapons. And basically everyone had a Soul Edge weapon, a Soul Calibur weapon, and a joke weapon. So, like, for example, I don't remember, like the Soul Edge weapons were always just like Soul Edge, fleshy looking versions of those weapons. I don't remember Link's Soul Calibur weapon, but his joke weapon was the butterfly net. And like every character had at least those three, and then obviously, it runs the gamut of other weapons you can get. Because, I mean, one of the things that drew me to Soul Calibur in the first place was that it was a fighting game focused on weapons. Because I've always been interested in weapons and, some of the more interesting stuff there. But then I'm trying to remember. I know there's other modes in there where you can get other stuff.
I mostly played as Link. I'm sure given enough time I could like get better at it, but I was just not very good. I wasn't really feeling it at all.
It's pretty balanced. I mean, you go up against someone who really knows what they're doing with Voldo and you're screwed. But in terms of going up against computers, you can pretty much do well with just about anybody. But like you said, you got to put the time in. I know the most time I've spent on this is the story mode. There was one of those times when I was in high school, I was over at a friend's house and we basically played through the story mode over the course of the weekend. And it's just a lot there. I mean, like you said, 10 hours to do a long play of the game, but it's all fun. Like just like we said about Killer Instinct, Soul Calibur 2 feels good to play. I think Keelik was the character I used the most. And in the arcade, we had figured out a particular move sequence that we would almost always be able to win because we basically stun lock them unless they manage to, slip in. But that's just time. You don't get to that point without putting a lot of hours in.
Killick kind of looks like a Dragoon.
Yeah, a little bit. He's got a lot of really flashy moves. I'm particularly partial to the one where he runs up the person's back and throws the stick at them from 3 feet away. The characters in this one were pretty good, and it's a nice variety of weapons. I mean, obviously there's going to be some overlap, and most of the time you were looking at people playing Voldo because he was weird and really good, or Ivy because she was wearing a metal bikini.
Voldo's character design I really, really liked. I mean, it's not just because he's got the
claws.
The claws. But it kind of looks like a mummy. He's got all this shit wrapped around him. Really, really, really nice character design. And Charade is really weird as well. I mean, he's kind of like the Shang Tsung of this game, isn't he? Because he morphs into all the different characters.
Yeah, he's a copy character, which crazily enough, that was Keelik later in the series.
All right.
I have no idea why, but Keelik stopped being the staff wielder and became the copy character later on.
Yeah, weird. Charade in the concept art is just like an eyeball with limbs, pretty much.
Yeah.
is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it's not that dissimilar from that final boss of Majora's Mask, when it's just the arms and legs coming out of the mask.
One thing that kind of really stood out to me is how gorgeous the graphics are in this.
Oh yeah,
they look really, really good. I mean, for GameCube, I mean, there's some really good looking stuff on GameCube. I mean, you had the Resident Evil reboots, but for a fighting game, seeing this running at 60 frames a second, looking the way it does, it's really, really nice to look at.
Yeah, and it looks really good on all three systems, which was impressive. Because I know there's a lot of times where something will look best on Xbox, but I mean all three versions look really good, and I think that's because the art style was well done, so they had a good base to work off of.
Like I said, I wasn't particularly good with the game, so it is a game that I like watching other people play, from the videos that I've seen, and it's very pretty to look at, but probably not something that I would put in the time to get good at.
It's a good game to watch at Evo.
Yeah.
I did put in that time, but I totally get, not wanting to commit that level of time to something now, especially when you could just go play the newer versions. But this one's still really good. I would still rather play Soul Calibur 2 over most of the other ones in the series.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, I didn't buy this for my GameCube. It's one of the games that came with it. I don't even have a box for it. It's just like the disc I've got. It's definitely something that is worth checking out. And I don't know. I mean, if I were to put a price range on what I'd pay, probably less than 10, around that kind of ballpark. I'd probably pick up a box copy if I saw.
It's not ridiculous to get a hold of a copy of this game. It'll be easier to find the GameCube and PS2 copies, because I always had trouble tracking down the Xbox version, just because, at the time, not a lot of people played multi-platform stuff on Xbox. Because, I mean, we're talking about the PS2 era where it was, basically if it was on PS2, people played it on PS2.
Yeah, I mean, it PlayStation 2 was and remains the best-selling console, I do believe.
Think so, although I think Switch is closing on it. And if it's not, it will be soon. But yeah, so PS2 copies should be super easy to find. And I know you can usually find GameCube copies at used shops. And I don't think it's terribly expensive.
I was actually surprised that my copy worked because with it just being just the disc, it is kind of like in pretty bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
But it worked perfectly fine.
Wow, this is insane. So my local used game shop has an Xbox. Okay, so it only has the Xbox copy in stock, but they're charging $8 for the Xbox copy, $8 for the PS2 copy, and $25 for the GameCube version.
Why?
I don't know. I guess because that's the one that's more in demand. I don't know. I don't know that I would pay $25 for that.
Well, I mean, I can understand why they'd be more in demand. I mean, out of those 3 exclusive characters, you'd want to play as Link rather than Spawn and whoever the hell the other guy is.
Heihachi, yeah. I mean, unless you're super into fighting games, like that kind of makes sense, but that's still a pretty big jump.
I mean, it is also weird in a way because out of those 3 consoles, the GameCube's got the worst pad. So you'd think for kind of like fighting games, you'd want. If I was going to pick one based on the pad, I'd go for the Xbox.
Oh, we're gonna get some hate mail for that.
It's just the shoulder buttons are just too clicky for me on GameCube.
Yeah, no, it's. I personally am not as enamored with the GameCube controller as a lot of people are. I think the Switch Pro controller is the best controller Nintendo's ever made, but there are legions of Smash fans that will yell at me and tell me I'm wrong for not worshiping the GameCube controller.
I mean, it's better than the N64 controller, and give you that.
Yeah, it's probably one of the few analog sticks that feels good without any kind of grip on it.
Having said that, I was still able to play it with that controller, and the fact that I didn't do very good, that wasn't down to the controller, that was just down to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's you don't have a lot of experience with this game. It makes sense you wouldn't be as successful as something like Killer Instinct that you've put a lot more time in.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a really good game. I definitely recommend people check it out. Unfortunately, I do not know if you can even find an arcade cabinet anywhere. And if you can, there's certainly not enough people using it to do the conquest mode.
This game came out a while ago, so good luck finding a arcade cabinet.
But no, it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you can find it for less than $10. It's you definitely get more than $10 worth out of it.
Even if you don't touch the story mode, you've still got a solid, very nice looking game with some interesting characters in it.
Yeah, and it's also a very good entry point to the series because this is the first game in the series that I had played, and it explains the concept well enough that you don't really need to play the first 2 games to understand what's going on. And also, it's a fighting game, so fighting happens.
I couldn't tell you anything about the story in Killer Instinct. It does have one. I have no idea what it is because I couldn't give a shit. Yeah.
These guys are going to do a fighting.
Yeah.
Basically said everything we've got. I mean, it's a good game. Check it out. You might need to look a little bit to find a copy, but I mean, I would definitely recommend it. And if you like it, there's plenty more to be had with this series.
Yeah, it looks like. I mean, I'm currently on the Soul Calibur wiki, and for some reason, Geralt is in the banner. So I'm assuming he's in one of the recent games.
Yeah. So Geralt was the guest character for Soul Calibur 6. Soul Calibur 5, the guest character was Ezio from Assassin's Creed. And then Soul Calibur 4, the guest characters were all Star Wars. So it was Yoda on Xbox, Darth Vader on PS3, and then the Apprentice from The Force Unleashed was on both. and then eventually you could buy whichever one wasn't on your console.
Yeah, because I mean, you'd want Darth Vader,
Right?
like fuck everyone else off. Yoda's cool, but if Darth Vader is an option, I'm going Vader.
Yeah, and the Apprentice is actually a really good character. He plays really well. This game and the series as a whole are easy recommendations. And the only one of them that, well, okay, the two of these, the two games out of this franchise that are hard to find are Soul Edge, the first one, and Soul Calibur 3, weirdly enough. But yeah, I mean, I think that's really all we have to say. So we'll, take a quick break and then finish up.
Okay.
Combo Breaker!
Well, that was our fighting game episode. I'm sure we'll circle back around to this topic eventually, because eventually the mob will come for us if we don't talk about Smash Brothers.
And Mortal Kombat.
Oh yeah, and Mortal Kombat. So that'll probably be the next time we cover this is Smash Brothers and Mortal Kombat. But yeah, so I guess all we really have left to say is to say goodbye. So until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.